morning once again. It's day 12 of our Lent readings for 2021. Continuing our series in the books of the Old Testament, we're now in 2 Kings. We did 1 Kings yesterday, and as I said yesterday, originally 1 book, but now divided into 2. So looking at the second half, 2 Kings continues the story of the 2 kingdoms that we now have. After Solomon's reign, Israel was divided in 2. The northern half continues to be called Israel. The southern half is now known as Judah. And the second book of Kings really in itself is divided into 2 halves, as it looks at the consequences for both of these kingdoms. You'll remember back in when we did Deuteronomy in day 4, I think it was, when Moses presented before the people, he said, look, you're God's chosen people. Today we're presenting before you blessings or curses, life and death. If you follow the Lord your God, you will be blessed and will be prosperous. If you neglect the Lord your God, you will not. You will be cursed, because you are a small nation among big, powerful nations. And the story of 2 Kings is the consequences of the people not following the Lord and neglecting him and chasing after idols of the nations around them. So the first half of the book ends in chapter 17 with the fall of Israel, the northern kingdom, under Hoshea, the last king of Israel, who they're conquered by the Assyrians and they are destroyed. And they feature no more. The southern half, Judah, continues for a while longer, but the end of the book of 2 Kings is their destruction as well, where the Babylonians come and they conquer Judah as a nation. They ransack Jerusalem, they destroy the temple, and they carry many of the people away back to Babylon. That's the exile. Now, throughout this time, God tries to call the people back through the prophets and warns them. And the main prophet here is going to be Elisha. Now, we had Elijah yesterday and Elisha today, similar names, and can be confusing when you're preaching on them. Now, Elijah hands over his ministry to Elisha. And before Elisha takes that on, Elijah says, what do you want from me? And he says, I want a double portion of your spirit. And as far as scripture's recorded, Elisha, his ministry was twice as long, and there's twice as many miracles recorded in Elisha's ministry than Elijah's. Now I want to read today the handover between the two, which is right at the beginning of the book of Kings. So it's in chapter 2. I'm going to read from verse 4, and this is how the handover goes from Elijah to Elisha. Then Elijah said to him, Stay here, Elisha. The Lord has sent me to Jericho. And he replied, As surely as the Lord lives, and as you live, I will not leave you. So they went to Jericho. The company of the prophets at Jericho went up to Elisha and asked him, Do you know that the Lord is going to take your master from you today? Yes, I know, he replied. So be quiet. Then Elijah said to him, Stay here. The Lord has sent me to Jordan. And he replied, As surely as the Lord lives and as you live, I will not leave you. So the 2 of them walked on. 50 men from the company of prophets went and stood at a distance, facing the place where Elijah and Elisha had stopped at the Jordan. Elijah took his cloak, rolled it up, and struck the water with it. The water divided to the right and to the left, and the 2 of them crossed over on dry ground. When they had crossed, Elijah said to Elisha, Tell me, what can I do for you before I am taken from you? Let me inherit a double portion of your spirit, Elisha replied. You have asked a difficult thing, Elijah said. Yet if you see me when I'm taken from you, it will be yours. Otherwise, it will not. As they were walking along and talking together, suddenly a chariot of fire and horses of fire appeared and separated the 2 of them. And Elijah was taken up into heaven in a whirlwind. Elisha saw this and cried out, My father, the chariots and horsemen of Israel! And Elisha saw him no more. Then he took hold of his garment and tore it in two. Elisha then picked up Elijah's cloak that had fallen from him. He went back and stood on the banks of the Jordan. He took the cloak that had fallen from Elijah and struck the water with it. "Where now is the Lord, the God of Elijah?" he asked. When he struck the water, it divided to the right and to the left, and he crossed over. Where now is the God of Elijah? Well, he was there, watching and waiting for Elisha to take up the mantle and to step forward in faith. Where now is the God of Elijah, the God of Elisha, Peter, Paul, Augustine, Calvin, Luther, Whitfield, Wesley, Billy Graham? Well, he's there watching and waiting for his people to take up the mantle and step forward in faith. Until next time, have a blessed day.